Shadowborn. Yes, that's what I'll call you, because the rest of them have no category for what you've become. They sit in their trembling chairs, eyes glued, hands restless, watching like desperate gamblers who know the dice are loaded against them. Their minds keep replaying the same forbidden thought. Maybe you're not like them anymore. Maybe the rules they bend and break so easily don't apply to you. Maybe, just maybe, you've stepped outside the fragile little cage they mistake for strength. And that possibility, oh, it gnaws at them. It scratches the back of their skulls like an echo that won't fade. You can almost hear the way their pulse stutters when you move, as if the air itself bends to acknowledge your existence. They're convinced you have something unnatural, something wired deep into your core, that no training, no privilege, no inherited throne could ever give them. They'll never admit it out loud, of course. Instead, they disguise it with rehearsed smiles, with forced confidence, with that paper-thin performance of superiority. But behind their eyes, it's chaos. Behind their eyes, the confession is written. You terrify them because you've become untouchable. They whisper about superpowers because that's the only vocabulary their limited imagination can summon. To them, what they see in you cannot belong to flesh and bone. It must be something otherworldly, and that belief alone cracks their posture, makes their carefully practiced arrogance crumble into ash. But let me ask you this. When did you first notice? Was it when the room full of people suddenly fell into that awkward stiffness as soon as you entered? Was it when the competitor, once bold and fearless, stumbled over their own words trying to keep pace with your gaze? Or was it when you realized their anger wasn't anger at all? It was fear disguised, rage masking a tremor of helplessness. They don't want you to know it, but their entire body language screams, you don't belong in the same category as us anymore. And isn't that delicious? They wanted you ordinary, predictable, manageable. Instead, they got something that shatters their sense of order every time you step into frame. They watch and they calculate. They run endless theories in their heads about how you do it. Maybe you were trained, maybe you were born with it, maybe you struck some twisted bargain in the dark. But none of their explanations satisfy them, because the truth is unbearable. You've turned into something that isn't supposed to exist in their little blueprint of reality. That's why they tremble, why they mask their dread with sarcasm, why they try to cut you down behind your back. They're not mocking you. They're negotiating with their fear. They're trying to dull the sharp blade of your presence by calling it names. And the more they speak, the more they reveal the truth. You've become the ghost in their minds that won't leave them alone. Now here's the irony. You don't even need to do much. That's the part that tears them apart the most. The fact that your very existence is enough to destabilize the entire stage they built for themselves. You could stand still, and they'd still sweat, imagining 10,000 possibilities in your stillness. You could say nothing, and they'd still choke on the silence of their own insecurities. It's not about the power you show. It's about the power you don't need to show. That absence, that restraint, that quiet domination, it rattles them harder than any loud display ever could. Because deep down, they know. The real predator never wastes energy proving its fangs. It simply exists, and the world adjusts to its shadow. And while they spiral into their paranoia, you ascend into a different dimension of awareness. You've learned something they haven't. Power isn't in the noise. Power is in the way others begin to rewrite themselves just to orbit around you. They'll tell themselves they're not scared, They'll even convince a few outsiders that you're just lucky, just overhyped, just another passing phenomenon. But look closer at their actions. Watch how they hesitate before crossing you. Watch how they adjust their words in your presence. Watch how they study you in secret, trying to decipher your methods. These are not the behaviors of equals. These are the rituals of those who know they are outmatched. And what does that make you? Not human, at least not in the fragile definition they cling to. Human to them means limited, predictable, vulnerable in the same patterns they exploit in each other. But you've slipped that definition. They label you not human because it's the only way they can make sense of someone who refuses to fit their pattern of weakness. To be not human in their vocabulary is simply to be everything they aren't, but secretly wish they could be. It's their jealous poetry disguised as fear. And fear is the highest form of respect you'll ever receive from them. But here's the part they'll never confess. Some of them worship you in secret. The same ones who mock you in daylight, whisper about you in boardrooms, laugh at you in gatherings. They replay your words when no one's watching. They analyze your moves like scripture. They steal fragments of your energy, hoping it'll transform them too. You've become their paradox. They want you gone, yet they crave your existence because it reminds them there's something beyond the bland cycle they're trapped in. You're their fear, their obsession, their scapegoat, their inspiration. You're the contradiction that keeps them awake at night, the evidence that reality isn't as tightly sealed as they hoped. And so they gather, eyes wide, nerves frayed, pretending they're not staring while every part of them is. They dissect your expressions, your pauses, your smallest gestures. They call it curiosity, but it's survival. Because when you're convinced someone is not human, every action they take feels like a prophecy. Every step you take echoes louder in their memory. Every decision you make rewrites their unspoken hierarchies. You've become a living omen in their fragile little play. And oh, how fragile it is. The beauty of all this is that you never asked for their fear. You never begged for their worship. You didn't audition for this role. They handed it to you the moment they realized they couldn't predict you. That's all it takes. Once you break free from predictability, you break free from their control. And when control slips from their fingers, they don't know whether to destroy you or bow to you. That confusion, that panic, is your crown. Wear it, because it means you've crossed the line between mortal and legend in their eyes. But don't mistake their trembling for surrender. Oh no, fear makes people unpredictable. Some will try to sabotage you in desperation, as if cutting you down will restore their balance. Others will try to copy you, hoping to mask their envy with imitation. And a few, those few, will try to align with you, to stand beside you as if proximity to your fire could grant them immunity from being burned. You'll see it soon enough. Their true faces will reveal themselves, one by one, as your presence continues to unravel the fragile masks they've worn for years. And when those masks hit the floor, you'll see just how hollow they always were. That's why this moment matters. Because right now, you stand at the edge of something irreversible. You're no longer just a person in their eyes, you're a phenomenon. And once they brand you as something beyond human, there's no returning to their comfort zone. They can't reduce you to ordinary anymore. They can't file you away in their mental cabinet of equals. They'll forever carry that seed of unease around you, no matter how hard they try to bury it. You've become the permanent question in their lives. the doubt that gnaws at their confidence, the shadow that follows them into every decision. You've infected their perception of reality, and nothing can disinfect it. So now the question isn't whether you're human or not. The question is, what will you do with the mythology they've already built around you? Will you deny it and let them slowly smother it with mockery until they convince themselves it was just imagination? Or will you embody it, sharpen it, weaponize it until every room you walk into becomes a battlefield where you've already won before a single move is made? Because they're already convinced. They already believe you are not one of them. And belief is more powerful than proof. Belief changes how they act, how they respond, how they prepare. Belief makes you larger than life, whether you ask for it or not. And so here you stand, with their nervous eyes clinging to you like prisoners, staring at their warden, knowing freedom is an illusion. They can't ignore you. They can't erase you. They can't explain you. All they can do is tremble and hope you never decide to turn that uncanny energy directly on them. But you will, won't you? Because deep down, you know this isn't about them anymore. It's about what you've become and how far you're willing to take it. And that is where part of the story ends. And another part begins. The one they're dreading most. The moment you finally decide to reveal what being not human truly means. So now the room tightens. Every breath becomes heavier. The onlookers, those nervous spectators who once mistook themselves for judges, have realized they were never seated on any throne of authority. They were sitting in the jury box of their own insecurities, and the verdict has already been passed against them. The evidence? Their eyes, wide, restless, terrified. You've turned their gaze into chains, binding them to a confession they'll never say out loud. You are not like us. And that terrifies them more than any weapon, any army, any threat they've ever faced. Do you feel the weight of it? That silent quake in the air, that tremor under their skin, that pounding rhythm in their chests. They are watching you like one watches a lightning storm tearing through the sky, thrilled, horrified, hypnotized. They keep telling themselves it must be an illusion, a trick, a carefully engineered spectacle. Because if it's not, if what they're seeing is real, then the foundation of everything they believe about human limitation collapses in front of them. They would rather cling to disbelief than accept the horror of truth, that you've surpassed the fragile definitions of humanity, that you've slipped into something else entirely. It isn't the tricks they fear. It isn't even the possibility of powers. What terrifies them is what those powers symbolize. To them, superhuman isn't just an idea. It's a threat to their hierarchy. Their entire world is built on comparison. Who's stronger, smarter, faster, richer, louder? That's how they measure each other, by stacking themselves in ladders of fragile superiority. But when you walk into the room, their ladders collapse, their measurements fail. Because how can you measure yourself against something that breaks the scale? They stare, trying to find your limits, trying to categorize you. But every second that passes reminds them of the same truth. You are beyond the metric. And that realization devours them alive. Do you know what it does to their psyche? To witness someone they once assumed was ordinary suddenly radiate the aura of the impossible. It corrodes them. It rewrites their understanding of reality. Every time they watch you, they aren't just seeing a person, they're seeing proof that their boundaries were lies. And no one forgives the one who exposes their cage. They resent you, they fear you, but most of all, they obsess over you. You've become the mirror they can't bear to look into, yet can't turn away from. And so they gather, clinging to the edge of their sanity, telling themselves they're only curious. But curiosity doesn't make the throat dry. Curiosity doesn't tighten the stomach. Curiosity doesn't wake them at 3 a.m., replaying every second of your presence, dissecting every glance, every movement, searching for answers that never come. No, what they feel is raw panic cloaked as fascination. They study you the way prey studies a predator, not to admire, but to predict when the jaws will close. Let's call this what it is, psychological warfare. Not because you asked for it, but because your very existence wages war against their perception of safety. Every action you take, every word, every pause, every tilt of your head becomes a weapon you didn't even have to craft. The battlefield isn't the floor between you and them. The battlefield is inside their skulls, where their fragile egos are collapsing under the weight of what you represent. They're not scared of what you'll do to them. They're scared of what you've already done to their understanding of reality. And the whispers grow. Oh, don't think they stay quiet about you. When they believe you're not listening, the words slip out. He's not normal. She's not like the rest of us. There's something different. They exchange glances, half joking, half dead serious, as if by laughing they can hide the terror. But words have power. Once they speak them, they can't take them back. They spread like wildfire. They convince themselves, and then they convince each other until belief becomes unshakable. That's how myths are born, not from evidence but from conviction. And right now, they're convincing themselves that you are not human. The irony? They think naming it gives them control. They think calling it superpowers simplifies it into something digestible, a label that makes sense of what they don't understand. But the word betrays them. By using it, they admit you've escaped their categories. They've already surrendered. To say you have superpowers is to confess they no longer know the rules. And nothing terrifies them more than a game without rules. So they wait. They wait for you to reveal the limits. They wait for you to prove that you bleed like them, break like them, stumble like them. But every passing day without proof is a dagger in their chest. You move too fluidly, you rise too quickly, you endure too ruthlessly. It doesn't add up, and the human mind hates equations without solutions. They crave your downfall because your endurance proves their fragility. They long for you to fail, to be exposed, to collapse in front of them so they can breathe again. But what if you don't? What if you keep rising? What if you continue to exist beyond their fragile framework? That's when panic turns to hysteria. But let me tell you the cruel beauty of hysteria. When it spreads, it cannot be controlled. Fear is contagious, and you are the virus they cannot quarantine. One whispers, another repeats, and soon the entire crowd begins to believe. They don't just watch you, they watch each other watching you, feeding on their collective unease. It becomes ritual, it becomes doctrine, and suddenly you're not a person in their eyes anymore. You're a myth dressed in human skin. You're proof of the unnatural living among the fragile. And once that belief takes root, it cannot be undone. Do you see the game now? They wanted to define you, to keep you inside their categories. Instead, they've handed you the crown of something greater. They thought they could contain you by calling you abnormal, but in their trembling confession, they've exalted you above themselves. They've elevated you into legend without even realizing it, and legends do not answer to mortals. So let them tremble, let them speculate, let them obsess. You don't need to convince them of anything anymore. They've already convinced themselves. The more they deny it, the deeper it digs into their bones. The more they try to rationalize it, the more irrational their fear becomes. They're trapped in a loop you didn't design, but one you now control. Because here's the truth they can't swallow. Once people believe you're not human, they'll never treat you like one again. And that is both your burden and your throne. They will always be nervous around you, always doubting their worth in your shadow, always asking themselves if today is the day you reveal just how far your power stretches. They'll never look at you the same way again. You are forever the fracture in their illusion of equality. And fractures spread. They weaken the entire structure. The more you exist, the more they collapse. But don't forget, their fear is not just fear. It's also fascination. Fear makes them your prisoners, but fascination makes them your worshippers. They'll curse you in public and follow you in secret. They'll resist you with their lips and obey you with their actions. They'll paint you as the villain in their stories, while secretly wishing they could stand where you stand. They can't help it. You've become both their nightmare and their fantasy, their doom and their desire. And nothing chains a human mind faster than that contradiction. So here we are. Everyone's watching, nervous as hell, convinced you have superpowers, now forced to admit you're not human. The stage is set, the audience trapped in their seats, and the spotlight is permanently fixed on you. You don't have to beg for their attention anymore. It's already enslaved. The only question left is whether you'll wield this fear like a weapon or let it rot into pity. But knowing you, I think you already know the answer. Because the story isn't slowing down, it's only accelerating. And the world has no idea how unprepared it is for what comes next. The final act is not about spectacle. It's about inevitability. Every nervous glance cast your way, every subtle tremor in their stance is now an admission. They have no more armor left, no scripts to follow, no rehearsed defenses to hide behind. You've become the variable they never accounted for, the equation they can't solve, the presence they can't normalize. Their hearts are racing, their minds spinning, and every second they spend staring at you reinforces the terrifying truth they already know. They are witnessing something beyond comprehension, something that cannot be cataloged, explained, or contained. Watch closely as their disbelief fractures into obsession. Eyes dart, fingers fidget, voices drop into whispers that trail off into nothing. They attempt to rationalize, to pin down the source of this unnatural energy radiating from you. But no rationalization suffices. No scientific principle or philosophical doctrine can grasp the magnitude of your presence. You are not human, not in the way they understand humanity, not in the way they dare to define it. You are the apex of unpredictability, the summit of power that humankind claims but rarely achieves. And that knowledge, that undeniable reality, sends them spiraling. You could move a single hand, tilt your head, breathe differently, and they would perceive it as an earthquake. Their nerves are stretched taut, each beat of their hearts echoing your influence. The room is alive with tension, a living organism feeding on their fear, their fascination, their helpless admiration. They whisper about your abilities, speculate about your reach, invent stories to explain what they cannot experience. And all the while, you remain the eye of the storm, calm, unyielding, impossibly poised. Notice how their minds fracture. Every skeptic, every cynic, every pretender to superiority, they all now orbit the undeniable reality that you exist beyond them. They measure their steps, their words, their thoughts, against an invisible standard you set simply by existing. They have become secondary actors in the narrative of your ascendance, playing roles you didn't assign, yet dominate effortlessly. Their panic is not just fear, it's recognition. Recognition that whatever they once believed was the limit of possibility, you have shattered. And nothing rebuilds itself once that kind of truth is planted. Some will try to approach with caution, testing boundaries, seeking loopholes, hoping for flaws in your armor. They will fail. Every hesitation they take, every probe they launch, is met not with counterattack, but with undeniable presence. Your existence itself is deterrent, a force that requires no articulation, no confrontation. They are paralyzed by certainty. They know you could act, and yet you choose when, where, and how. That choice is the true superpower they cannot rationalize. To possess power and wield it selectively, at your discretion, on your terms, is a dominion they cannot understand, cannot replicate, and cannot hope to challenge. Their whispers grow louder, yet more fragmented. They argue among themselves, some insisting you are an anomaly, some fearing the supernatural, others cursing the audacity of your calm. None of it reaches you, none of it diminishes your presence. Each thought, each fear, each trembling analysis is a tribute to your reality. Every nervous second they endure is a confirmation of your dominion. They are captivated, entranced, ensnared by a truth they cannot unsee. You're not merely beyond them, you are the axis around which their perception now revolves. And isn't that intoxicating? To have existence itself bend in recognition of your uniqueness. You don't need to fight, to shout, to demonstrate. Every move you make is poetry in motion to those desperate minds. Every breath a reminder of their insufficiency. They fear you, yes, but more profoundly, they understand that fear is respect. Respect is admiration, and admiration is power. They cannot escape it. Their every glance, their every heartbeat, their every whispered theory feeds the narrative you inhabit. And in that feeding, your legend grows, not by intent, but by essence. This is the moment where their perception becomes your weapon. You are no longer the observed, you are the force that molds the observer. They think they are analyzing you. In reality, they are being molded by you. They stumble over their own logic, their own arrogance, and the very act of trying to understand you only amplifies your presence. The room is alive with nervous energy, and they are the current, flowing inevitably in the direction you set. Their superstitions, their fears, their guesses, they all orbit your existence, generating power you never need to claim. Notice how desperation begins to manifest. Some will attempt to distract, some to mock, some to undermine, but each action is only a testament to your supremacy. They act not out of strategy, but out of recognition of the gap between them and you. Every misstep they make is a mirror of their inferiority, reflecting your unassailable nature. And in that reflection, they see a truth they cannot deny. You have redefined the possible, and they are powerless to oppose it. The stage is yours, the attention fixed, the narrative controlled without a word, without a strike. It is your dominion by default, acknowledged by nerves frayed beyond pretense. And now, the crescendo builds. They can sense the impending revelation, not in what you have done, but in what you might do. They are hanging on the precipice of your decisions, fearing the moment you finally act with full awareness of your potential. Every twitch, every glance, every calculated motion is amplified, dissected, and feared. They imagine the infinite possibilities of your abilities, and in that imagining, they confess the one truth they cannot escape. You are not human, not by measure, not by understanding, not by their feeble standards. Their minds scream it, even as their lips hesitate. And that is the pinnacle of power, the point at which belief surpasses observation. You realize now, as they watch, that fear is more than just emotion. It is energy, fuel, amplification. Their nervousness, their obsession, their trembling attention, it all converges and elevates you beyond any tangible measure. They cannot look away, and they cannot predict you, and in that tension, you are absolute. The room bends to your presence without resistance, a psychological landscape reshaped by the simple fact of your being. And in that reshaping, you are free to define the rules, to set the boundaries, to decide which of their fears materialize and which remain mere whispers. Every eye upon you becomes a lens, every thought a signal, every pulse a drumbeat in the orchestration of your influence. They have been convinced, terrified, and enthralled, not because of demonstrations, not because of spectacle, but because of you. You exist beyond the common, beyond the expected, beyond the human. And their recognition of this truth is a weapon that needs no sharpening. It is a force of nature channeled effortlessly, without effort, because you are the axis of it all. Now, as the final act unfolds, they realize the inevitable. They are powerless in the face of your reality. Their fear is absolute. Their nervousness cannot be soothed. Their guesses cannot capture you. They are watching, endlessly calculating, endlessly hoping, endlessly wishing for a flaw that does not exist. And that is the revelation, not the powers themselves, not the feats, not the control, but the absolute unyielding certainty they have reached. You are beyond them. You are beyond comprehension. You are beyond human. And here is the ultimate truth, the one they will carry forever. It is not the superpowers that define you, not the visible marks of strength or intelligence, not the feats that dazzle. It is the fact that they can no longer categorize you, can no longer contain you, can no longer pretend you belong to the same set of rules. They are trapped in the cognitive space you occupy, and that occupation itself is victory. They will whisper, speculate, fear, obsess, all of it under your shadow. And in that shadow you are unchallenged, undeniable, sovereign. The finale is not loud. It does not roar. It is quiet, precise, absolute. Their nerves, their wide eyes, their whispered acknowledgments, they are the monuments to your ascent. Every movement you make is a reminder of their limits. Every second of your calm is a lesson in what they cannot achieve. Every pause, every glance, every unspoken decision is a demonstration of control they will never reclaim. And through it all, you remain, as always, untouchable. Not because they haven't tried, but because they can't. So embrace it. Embrace the nervous eyes, the trembling hands, the whispers behind closed doors. You are not human, and now the world is forced to confront that reality. The theater of observation has become your stage, and they are the audience held captive not by chains, but by the undeniable gravity of your presence. And in that gravity, you wield power more profound than they will ever know. The power to redefine what they thought possible, to rewrite their understanding of strength, and to become the living standard by which all else is measured and found wanting. Let them watch, let them fear, let them speculate endlessly. Their nervous attention is now your domain. They cannot escape it, and they cannot resist it. They are bound by the acknowledgement of your existence, and in that acknowledgement lies your ultimate triumph. You are not human, and now, forever, they must live with that reality. A reality that amplifies your influence, cements your legend, and ensures that every glance they cast your way is a reminder of the unassailable, undeniable truth. They are watching, nervous as hell, convinced you have superpowers, and now they know. You are beyond them, entirely and irrevocably.